Just a little bit about the Georgetown Technology Alliance, for those of you who don't know about it. We're an all-volunteer organization of alums and parents in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we put on events such as this twice a year. And what else do we do? We advise the university on technology policy overall. It's not always listened to, but we do have a point of view about that, and we also work with students to help engage them and give them advice on careers in technology. So those are kind of the big things that we do, and we have a great board, and we're always interested in new volunteers, so please let us know if you'd like to get involved in some way. We have with us today one of our just absolutely crack moderators, Betsy Corcoran, who is a Georgetown graduate and is an awesome person, in addition to an illustrious career in journalism that both she and her husband have engaged in with the Washington Post and Scientific American and Forbes. Betsy now is engaged in an education startup called lusair.org that she's just getting off the ground, and I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you about that after the panel. So with that, I'd like to introduce Betsy Corcoran, who will be our moderator today.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here because I will confess to you that the last time I got up in front of a crowd to talk about what we then called interactive television, it was actually 1993. And I had done a brief sojourn at Microsoft, and what I was doing was a demo with Bill Gates for the financial analyst meeting of what was going to be a great product for Microsoft, interactive television. It didn't quite turn out the way we thought it was going to turn out. And then, you know, in the following years, we saw lots of other interactive television things. We saw Silicon Graphics go to Orlando and spend lots of money on that. And over the years, we've heard this over and over. So the question for this panel today, we have a fantastic selection of people who are involved in the business side, in the technology side, and ultimately in what gets delivered to your home. The question that I have really are two. One is, after all of these years of promise, is this it? Is this the time that we should really be buying something new for our living room? And what should it be? Or is this the time, question number two, as an investor, I should actually be investing in these companies? Those are the two questions that I hope we're going to be able to walk away with some kind of answer to at the end. So we're doing something a little bit different this time. It seemed difficult to actually have a conversation about video technology of some sort without seeing something. So I've asked each of the panelists to bring a very short clip of some of the work that their company is involved with. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch each one of them, talk a little bit about them, and then we'll engage in our panel discussion. At the end of this, we will certainly have time for questions. I know that we have a few audience members involved in the industry who are super interested and have some great questions. So please hold on to your questions, but don't let them go, because we will have time for that towards the end. All right? Great. So first, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce our partial host, Ron Jacoby, who is Vice President for Connected TV here at Yahoo. And why don't we gentlemen, if we could start with the first clip from Ron, and get that. Connected TV debuted about 18 months ago, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Ron has been in the amazing position of having been with this kind of technology from the early days, from Silicon Graphics. Ron, take a couple of minutes. What's different about the environment now than back in the days of Orlando?
Sure. Well, it's, I guess, a great honor to see it from the beginning, if you will. I mean, I'm either crazy or very persistent. But, you know, at some level you have to look at it as an evolution of, you know, where we were then and the things we were trying to accomplish were kind of necessary steps in order to get where we are today. There's a whole lot of different things you have to look at, because this isn't just a question about, you know, technology, and certainly there was a technology equation as part of this. The things we were doing back then were very expensive to do. It's not that we couldn't do them, but, you know, when the biggest disk drive you can buy is 2 gigabytes, right? You need a heck of a lot of them to store movies, for instance. Well, today, you know, like you go to Fry's and you pick up, you know, flash drives that are 2 gigabytes for, you know, $4, and you go and buy, you know, 2 terabyte disk drives for $60, right? So technology certainly has to continue to march along in order to make it happen. So clearly this is a technology curve. There's also, of course, the internet grew up. In the early 90s, the internet was largely still a research vehicle. You know, general consumers couldn't really access it. So the whole evolution of the internet to, you know, communications, entertainment, and, you know, everything medium that we do across everything we do, from our phones to our, you know, entertainment devices, was a necessary part of that as well, because the ubiquitous connectivity has been established. People just expect every device you have now, of course, it has some sort of connectivity. But that certainly wasn't the case, where, you know, very few people had, you know, networks running within their house in the mid-90s, right? That infrastructure all had to be built out and the industry all created. And the technology got into a place where anyone can do it. And a third part of it is somewhat of a social engineering question. It's just that, you know, society has evolved to a place where the place of this technology in society has gotten to a point where, again, it's an expectation that, you know, kids are running around with iPhones and, you know, accessing apps from a, you know, server in the cloud and downloading their device and interacting with these connected applications. And people just, again, expect these things to be there everywhere. And that is, again, very different when, you know, the television was seen as this, you know, very isolated device with a particular use case, and that's what it was and will be. Despite, like you say, the desires of the cable companies at that point to kind of move you to something else. But they ran into all these same realities of, you know, the technology, the social engineering question, and the kind of movement that needs to happen in order to get us to where we are today. So the great news is that we're here. Now, the interesting part is many of the things that were learned back in the 90s are still very true today. So if you look at use cases, if you look at models of things that were successful, if you look at the way people interact with content, in fact, all that stuff directly translates. You know, I look at the results of what I see with our system that's out there, you know, in 135 countries with, you know, millions and millions of devices. Our technology is one that you embed directly into television sets. So nothing's required. You buy a television set from one of the major manufacturers and you've got it. Right? So millions of people have it and don't even know it. That's one of our challenges. But what you saw here is a video of a new feature that we're introducing part of this year, which is this feature called Broadcast Interactivity, where we're working cooperatively with the major broadcasters in the United States, people like CBS, NBC, ABC, you see a lot of the content out here, in order to enhance broadcast television with interactive elements. So again, we're thinking about this in a way of how do we take the device that's a television, that is a device people understand the use case of today, and extend that use case with the abilities of what the internet is allowed to deliver to them, rather than kind of replacing it. It's, you know, interactive TV and this whole connected TV space for us is not one of taking the internet and slapping it on your TV. It's one of TV as a use case as much as it is as a physical device. Okay. And it's much more around the notion of how do we enhance that use case with the capabilities of what connectivity allows. And that's kind of where our platform is and where we take it.
Good, okay, so you raised a lot of really interesting points that we're going to come back to about how we use it, what we expect to get, and this question of you know, how do we get around this not sort of slapping things together question. So some really good points we'd like to come back to.